Hi everyone, I'm Yutong Hu. Welcome to my trip to Macroeconomics. This presentation will briefly introduce to you what I have learned in my macroeconomics class, and I will highlight those parts that I think it's the most important one. And so I'm a junior in DKU, majoring in political economy with economics track. And I will just skip this part and show you this diagram. This diagram shows you what I have learned through the 7-week courses. We have explored some of the basic microeconomics theories and models, including the equilibrium business cycle model, the rational expectation theory, and some monetary policies. I think I will skip part 1 to 3 because of the time limit. And these 3 parts are simply a summary of those basic macroeconomics theories and simulation of them. You can see the idea clearly by the title. First is microeconomic briefing. We talk about what is microeconomics, what are microdata, what is micromodel, and why do we study microeconomics. The second one is addressing economic growth. We talk about GDP and we did some simulation of, for example, the convergence of short-term economic growth in the steady state per capita GDP. And then is the rational expectation theory. This is the summary for this rational expectation theory model. There's some exogenous variable and endogenous variables. We talk about how will those variables affect the price level, and we find out the correlation between them. So those are some figures and numbers that we have done in the code laboratory. We use the coding technology to simulate changes. And then comes to this part. So I will elaborate the following 2 parts in details. First is this macroeconomics in business practice. This is about what I have learned in my week 6, a cloud field trip to a newly founded company, Liquidity. So Liquidity is an interest-free borrowing platform and a stablecoin protocol built on Ethereum. Liquidity offers interest-free loans by issuing its own USD-backed stablecoin, LUSD, against Ethereum used as collateral. And it is funded by Dr. Robert Lucon. Stablecoins was the main theme in his presentation. So stablecoins are cryptocurrencies that attempt to minimize the volatility of the price. This kind of crypto coin can meet the purpose of maintaining its purchasing power and having the lowest possible inflation, sufficient to encourage spending the tokens instead of saving them. A stablecoin can be pegged to a cryptocurrency, fiat money, or to exchange traded commodities and is redeemable. And we connect stablecoin to the monetary policy that we have learned. First is stablecoin USD of Liquidity is pegged with US dollars. Then the stability as well as the volatility relates to the price level of the US dollar. And this is related to the financial stability, market infrastructure, and payments. However, stablecoin could potentially challenge monetary sovereignty and change the way monetary policy works. This would be most pronounced during periods of strains, when there is a massive substitution of fiat currency into stablecoins. He introduced to us the business model of Liquidity. It can generate economic value as well as social value by providing choices of investment and boost the development of cryptocurrency, and by constructing its own token economy by 3 tokens in the system. So it provides a stability mechanism. The last part is the future perspective. So this is the diagram I drawn to show the development of monetary policies. We know that a nation's economy will become overheated or slips into recession. So we have this initial demand for monetary system. And there comes a conventional monetary policies. The idea is that a central bank can manipulate the short-term interest rate by selling and buying bonds to adjust the money supply. And this could also affect the unemployment rate and other financial market factors. But there is also problems of conventional monetary policies. We call the liquidity trap. So when the interest rate hits a zero lower bound, the action of selling and buying bonds will have no effect on interest rate. So people are no longer incentivized to invest, and instead they hoard money. So we have another monetary policy, which is unconventional monetary policies. The basic idea is that we have this first quantitative easing. A central bank purchase financial assets to raise price and increase money supply. The second one is negative interest rate. Central banks can charge banks of their excess reserves, which may carry over to deposit in bonds. We also call it tax on holding money. So you might wonder what are differences between the conventional and unconventional monetary policies of purchasing assets. First is that quantitative easing involves the purchase of more risky assets instead of those short-term government bonds, which is what we have done in conventional monetary policies. And it is also at a very large scale over a pre-committed period of time. Second, how does this quantitative easing works? Because one is this money friction. Money flows slowly to the economy, the price adjusts slowly. Those rich people who have the greatest purchasing power, they will buy products and before the price goes high, and this can incentivize the economy. And the second is a real interest rate. What really matters is not the nominal interest rate, but the real interest rate, which is equal to the nominal interest rate detected by the inflation. When we implement unconventional monetary policy, the inflation will be really high, and therefore the real interest rate will be low. So this is how the quantitative easing works. However, the problems of unconventional monetary policies also exist. For example, the inflation or even hyperinflation. When there is this hyperinflation, money will lose its value and it could trick down economics. Also, there is wealthy inequality. It will be exacerbated because only rich people will be able to invest in the stock market and benefit from the growth. Also, central banks will lose independence because of overpressure from the presidents or the government. And a high transactory cost and weak transparency is also one of the problems. And the conventional monetary policies and unconventional monetary policies are all centralized monetary policies. And this centralized ledger is fragile because once the center is hacked or it doesn't work, the whole system will collapse. So it also lacks of transparencies. And so we have this decentralized monetary policies to tackle down all the problems that we have covered. It includes blockchain technology and smart contracts. So it is related to decentralized finance and crypto-backed stablecoin. It has a lot of advantages. For example, the first is decentralized, of course. There's no middleman and no third party. And monetary on the blockchain is predefined, and it doesn't need discretionary decision making. And the second advantage is no custodian. We have control of our own assets. There's no risk for bank robbed, and our money is relevantly secure. It is also 24/7 accessible, not like those banks that only open on weekdays. And it is open source and transparent. It have low cost. However, there's also challenge of this decentralized monetary policy. For example, it is not very user-friendly because not everyone will be able to make transaction with, for example, the stablecoin because it requires some background knowledge and it lacks of security. The system bug should be eliminated. Based on these challenges of decentralized monetary policy, I have proposed this research idea. So we know that besides user friendliness and lack of security, there's also this unsolved problem, which is government might lose control of transaction. So how do we solve these three problems based on the current decentralized monetary policies? The first I think of is that we can provide easier layout. So I take the liquidity system as an example. So we provide easier layout for transaction while also providing the code of the process beside. In this case, people with no relevant background will be able to understand the process, while also we have make sure of the transparencies. The second is system upgrade. Automatic check system. We can invest some automatic check-in system to check the bugs. And this is how we do the system upgrade to make sure of the security of blockchain and smart contract. So corresponding policies should follow up to track cryptocurrency movement without harming the advantage of decentralized, because like those fiat currencies, they can be transferred and it It is easier for government to track the currency movement and detect who profits most from the movement, and so they can collect taxes on them, and they can also trace criminal activities from those currency movement. And last but not least, behavioral science tasks can also be implemented to understand people's behaviors when facing the new decentralized monetary policy. Thus, economists can study the mechanism behind it, and so that it can better improve. But there's also limitation. For example, it definitely takes time to develop and improve because the decentralized monetary policy is very complex and broad. And most importantly, we should find proper combination of centralized monetary policy and the decentralized monetary policies. So those are the references that I have used. Thank you.